Welcome to From the Correspondent, your window to the world around you, where I take you on a journey to the heart of news, uncovering the stories that shape our world and what lies beyond the headlines. I am Emmanuel Tewasi. Today is a special edition for me, and of course I know for you, reason being that we will be looking at the rationale behind the long-standing rivalry between Nigerians and South Africans. It is it's no new knowledge that there is this banter between us and our brothers in South Africa, and I bet you most of us may be wondering why this is so. For the record, we know that Nigeria played a major role in ending the reign of apartheid in South Africa, to the extent of spending over 61 billion naira at that time in the 90s. A few years later, this good relationship took the opposite direction, and we started hearing things like xenophobia and the rest. So one may ask, how did we get to this point of hostility? So there have been social media wars between citizens of this country. The recent one, which is very fresh in my memory, I don't know if you also witnessed that, the issue of Bolt for Bolt and Uber for Uber and all of that, to the extent that the South African government took to its official Twitter handle, now known as X, to apologize to Nigerians. That is the extent to which this banter has gone. So sit tight for an interesting story ahead with our very own Charles Pius. But before then, let's look at some of the stories done by our correspondents. We will be bringing you the dualization and flag off of more road construction in Enugu State by the Enugu State governor, who is so keen about infrastructure development, followed by the gruesome murder of a popular Enugu musician, Okeze Mba, known as Iboja, by a police inspector. Quite a sad incident it was. We'll then bring to you how stakeholders are making efforts to ensure more women participation in policy making and governance. And lastly, we will look at the 2024 physical performance report by budget, which ranks some states as top performing states in terms of revenue generation. Before we now go back to our big story for today, which is the perception of South Africans towards Nigerians living in their country and beyond. The program continues shortly after the break. You're still watching From the Correspondent on Signature TV, where journalists who are eyewitnesses to history bring to you firsthand events that make news by sharing their personal stories. Governor Peter Mba of Enugu State within the week flagged off the dualization of the 41-kilometer Abakpa-Nike Ugoko-Nike Ekwebe Pinsuka Road and the 3.6-kilometer Nike Lake Pennox Noah's T-Junction Road. Let's take a look at that report.
The dualization of Abakpa-Nike to Nsukka Road, which cuts across Ekwebe and OP, is one of the campaign promises of Governor Peter Mba to help boost economic activities in the state. Mba said that the dualization of the road and the Pennox to T-Junction will enhance road safety, reduce travel time, and improve connectivity.
What we're trying to do here today is not just symbolic. It's not just the symbolism of doing a wide road or paving road. We're looking at an integrated economy. We want to grow this economy, and we know that when I was to come here, I had asked my team, how long was it going to take to get there? They said 40 minutes. So we left exactly 20 minutes past 3 because we had scheduled to be here at 4. But as you can see, we got here an hour later. We were about 20 minutes late. So there is no reason why a trip from Enugu to Nsukka should take 1 hour. It should not happen.
The traditional ruler of Edema Ancient Kingdom, Igwe Samuel Asado, expressed excitement and gratitude for the project, assuring the governor of continued support from the area.
We cannot pay you enough, sir. Whatever you are doing here is only the Almighty God that will pay you back. He looks at the heart of men. And those who I'm speaking on behalf of all the traditional laws in the state and all the people in the Suka Senatorial Zone to thank you for this project. I have never seen it this good. Deputy Speaker Ezani Ezenta praised Governor Peter Mbah for keeping his promises, while former Deputy Governor Chief Okechukwu Itai described the project as gigantic, huge, unbelievable, and marvelous.
You said to yourself, and we are asking you, how can you do this? Your Excellency, you are proving us wrong today. You are proving us that you have the formula, the solution of the yearning of the people of Enugu State.
It's a link road to the southeast and to the south-south, and also possibly to the southwest. So it's a link road to the south. So you are opening Nsukka to the world.
Chief Executive of the construction company, Cosmos Agro, promised to deliver the project within the speculated time.
We can only say that we are committed to this dream. We are committed to delivering this project, the best practice, international best practices. We are committed to deliver this project on schedule. We are committed to deliver this project in quality standard. We are committed to deliver this project and make our people happy.
Enugu residents and commuters were no less excited about the project.
Transporters that transport from here to Enugu, they find it very difficult because of the bad road. But if the road is being done, we both the poor and the rich are going to enjoy it. So we are happy that it's happening now, and we are happy that Dr. is taking the bull by the horn to get it done.
The downside of the project is the frustration and agony expressed by those whose properties and businesses may be demolished along the corridor. The state government has assured that the road will be completed within 18 months, with street lights and regular patrol by security agencies. Chinemerem Ikebunam, Signature TV News.
And on a sad note, a popular Enugu musician, Okezemba, fondly known as Igbo Jao, was gruesomely murdered by a police inspector. The story surrounding his death, as the story surrounding his death unfolds, his family is demanding for answers about this painful incident. Let's take a look at that report.
As a renowned singer and drummer, Okezie's music career had gained widespread recognition, transcending Enugu State and resonating deeply with Igbo communities nationwide. His unique style, which incorporated storytelling, singing, and chanting in the Igbo dialect, accompanied by the local ogene drum, had captivated fans across the social media and beyond. In response to his tragic demise, Enugu State Governor Peter Mbah dispatched a delegation led by the Secretary to the state government, Professor Chidebere Onya, to offer condolence to the Okezie's family. Onya emphasized the state's commitment to protecting lives and property, stressing that the killing of any Enugu citizen or resident will not be tolerated.
The state government will work with this family every step of the way, because enough is enough. With every single life in Enugu State counts. And for us to wake up to such a sad news is something that we shouldn't take lightly. We appreciate the emotions because we see what is going on outside.
Other notable figures, including the member representing Enugu North and South in the House of Representatives, Chimaobi Atu, visited the family of the deceased to offer support. Atu pledged to train Okezie's children up to the university level.
They should carry the investigation thoroughly to know the reason why that police officer should shoot an innocent Nigerian citizen. It's uncalled for. And I'm asking the youth to be calm. They should not take laws into their hands. That I know that the government is going to investigate the matter and take decisive action against anybody find guilty of that.
Okezie's elder brother, Joseph Mbah, who is still in shock over the sudden loss, revealed that his brother's body was taken to the morgue without notifying the family.
No information.
They took my brother to the mortuary without telling any of his direct relatives, not even his extended relations. It was Okizie's band members that started calling to inform us that they have killed Okizie. Okizie did nothing wrong to anybody to warrant such a wicked act from any man.
The Commissioner of Police in Enugu State, Kanayo Uzebu, announced the commencement of an orderly room trial for the implicated police inspector, Ozonwanji Joseph, and ordered the redeployment of the officer in charge of the tactical squad, Ekeleme Chidobe. The trial of the police inspector, Ozonwanji Joseph, who allegedly murdered Okezie, was adjourned to November 12, 2024, after his dismissal from the Nigerian police force on Monday. Chinemerem Ikebunam, Signature TV News.
What an unfortunate incident that claimed the life of that promising young man. May he so continue to rest in peace. Meanwhile, Nigerian women in various professions converged on Shehu Yadwa Center, Abuja, to forge a common front to amplify the role of women in leadership, business and politics. Nasiru Usman was there for Signature TV.
The Abuja Women in Business and Politics Summit 2024 called for all women to hold each other accountable and remind them of their strengths in numbers, and once united can build nations. Guest speaker Honorable Gineka Tor Ijeoma spoke about promoting national unity through equitable representation in her treatise on the roles of women in leadership. She said, women should not wait to be included in functions, be it politics or business, or sit back and wait till positions are handed to them, but rather they should affirm, reflect, and come up with groundbreaking ideas for their elevation. She also urged women in higher positions to take up other inexperienced women as mentees and nurture them, be it in business or politics, until they could stand on their feet.
We will do better if we continue with training like this, where we will speak to each other's story, where we will speak to one another one-on-one. Let me tell you something. Some people will not be here just because somebody will be here. For how long will we continue to be? That's why when they invite me, I don't be trying to carry black card to go and say I'm fine. I say I'm not to carry black card. Black card for what? You carry this thing, you are giving these men holiday, they'll sit in their house and whine over you. Why don't you start affirming yourself? When you see where I don't have it right, it's not my fault. Why don't you help me to get it right? How many women seated here and say I have mentors? Please raise of them. I have mentees. Raise of them. Mentees, you are sure. God bless you.
We wanted in PDP, our party, to give the vice chairman not where the present acting chairman is now. We wanted it to be a woman. And there was a well-established, quite well-known, respectable woman who got upon and presented herself for that post. And a lot of them were backing and pushing. But when the vote was cast and we counted it, we couldn't find the women to vote. They are taking all of their own numbers and they are going to dump it behind the man. Imagine for a second if they had just used their number to back their own. Maybe today, as a result of the accident that threw up the new acting national chairman, we probably have acting national chairman that would have been a woman. And there are nations in the world that women have been president, women have been chairman, women have been everything. It is for the women.
I have in the midst here an ambassador to Mexico. He's sitting here. The woman is the president in Mexico and coming up to the United States of America. Because women believe we can do it. Well, here in Nigeria, there is so much hate. Please, my fellow women, together we are stronger. Together we can move mountains. I'm very passionate about women being included in government, the executive, the legislature, whatever it is, we can do it. One voice is a million voices.
National women leaders of both PDP, Mrs. Amina Darasimi Brahim, and our APC counterpart, Dr. Mary Idili Alili, grilled the women on the major summit objective, which was to show the men in office that they could compete with them, but would rather prefer to complement and complete them.
The political space is shrinking for the Nigerian woman. And so we are beginning to have conversations around women's participation and inclusion in in politics. When you begin to look at the data, you will weep because Nigeria is nowhere in the global conversation. In the last elections, you had House of Assembly, 990 seats. We have only 48 women in the entire country. 990 seats. You come to the House of Representatives where you have 360 seats. We have only 16 women. You come to the Senate where you have 109 seats. We have only 4 women. And I had to charge the Speaker of the House of Representatives, as you begin to amend the Constitution, let us look at the gender policy. If we can get it right, then perhaps in 2027, our percentage will increase.
Power is not served a la carte. You take it, because if you need it, you will take it by force. Because nobody is coming to give it to you and send it to you. And if we believe that financial capacity is not together with politics, then we are making a big mistake. You need to be financially capable to be able to compete for a political seat. Because what our leader was talking about at the last minute, all the women, of course, women all year. If you give them 6 years, they will clap. Another bag of rice, they will clap. It's about the vote. And on the voting day, the men will give them 500,000. They have changed that vote. Why? Financial capacity. The PDP national woman leader was talking about free form. We don't want free form. We don't want free form. We will pay the money, but give us a free and a free level playing ground. And then let's see who has capacity.
They stress the need for Nigerians to amend some certain laws and create gender policies, which will see more women assume roles in the Senate, House of Representatives, and one day occupy the presidency or vice presidency position in Abuja. Nasir Usman for Signature TV News.
Nigeria is moving to a point where one day we would have a female president. There's also a bill sponsored by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps, Benjamin Kalu, to reserve certain seats for women at the national down to the state assembly, looking at Nigeria on the global map in terms of women participation in governance. The numbers are very low, and with time I believe would be there where we're supposed to be. So now we look at the report by budget, fiscal 2024 fiscal performance report by budget, which has ranked Rivers, Lagos, Anambra, Kwara and Cross River as top performing states in terms of revenue generation. The organization also ranked Jigawa, Bayelsa, Yobe, Plateau and Imo as the least performing state. Let's take a look at that report.
Budget, a civic organization that uses creative technology to simplify public information, on Tuesday presented the report of the 2024 fiscal performance, with Rivers, Lagos, Anambra, Kwara, and Cross River on top. At the presentation in Abuja, tagged State of States 2024 edition, moving healthcare delivery from suboptimal to optimal summit. The organization also ranked Jigawa, Bayelsa, Yobe, Plateau, and Imo as the list. While presenting the report, Eniobong Hussein, a member of the budget team, emphasized that states should mind the rate at which they collect dollar-dominated loans due to the high dollar exchange rate. Instead, they should seek for means to increase their internally generated revenue to fund their projects.
If you look at one of the offshoots of one of the major policy reforms of the Tinubu administration, which was with the liberalization of the naira. The exchange rate went from about 899 naira to the dollar from December 31st, 2023 to over 1,600 naira as at now. And when I go into the numbers, you would see how much the debts of the states have increased as a result of that devaluation of the naira. So it's important that the states check, you know, the appetite for accumulating dollar-denominated loans, especially in this high interest rate environment.
Tayo Odowoju of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, in his keynote, discussed Nigerian healthcare journey from vulnerability to relative stability, highlighting key challenges and priorities.
Since 2015, the open government principles and practices, which, you know, Stanley and a few other Nigerians managed to bully me into cheering longer than I was turned up to cheer. I think I'm the longest co-chair of the Open Government Partnership in Nigeria. We again worked across the states with budget as a partner in the budget transparency component of the Open Government Principles to deepen subnational transparency. And here's the truth. The governors came along. And it's because the governors came along that the open data system today that forms the basis for seeing all this data that comes up to create this state of states report is possible.
In the panel discussion hosted by Olayinka Babalola on healthcare service delivery in Nigeria, challenges and key reforms, Dr. Adezi Ore, the Commissioner for Health in Rivers State, emphasized the power of community advocacy in influencing government action on health issues. She called for a formal compliant system to convey public concerns and advocated for social health insurance to ensure access.
What we've done recently in the state is to reactivate medical emergency services with call centers, not just for deploying of ambulances, but we also have dedicated lines simply for complaints. And the reason is, if we don't publicize the fact that we are welcoming public perception, public feedback, everybody thinks it's business as usual and that it is just government and you use it where you can, but there's no system to engage or take on board the recommendations from the public.
Dr. Bello Jamu, Executive Secretary, Primary Healthcare, Kaduna State, proposed annual hiring targets, digital tracking for healthcare workers, and ongoing staff training, which were all implementation in Kaduna State.
So the one thing that Kaduna State is doing, at least in the immediate, is recruitment. There is recently a legislation by His Excellency the Executive Governor, Senator Masani, to promptly replace all the staff that have exited the service over the last 1 year. That amounted to about 388 of them. This is the first legislation.
In his closing remarks, Oluseun Onigbinde urged a commitment to long-term growth in healthcare rather than initiative that yield only immediate benefits.
Adequately compensated for. The government is open to do that. I think a lot more people would. I mean, it will not balance out. You will not get the 300 to 400,000 opportunity that people can get in the US. A lot of people also don't want that life. They don't want to relocate, but they want a fair deal of what is right and what is proper.
Signature TV interviewed Gabriel Okiowo, the country director of budget, and he says,
last year and this year, our focus has been on health, and that is why you will see that we are discussing health in there. The essence for that is because health is a critical component of our development, right? And one of the recommendations that you see there is the need for state government to prioritize investments in health, and not just in terms of budgetary allocation, but also in terms of actual releases, so that the health of citizens can improve, knowing fully well that when we have improved when the health of the citizens are improved, we also have a healthy economy.
In Abuja, Nasir Usman for Signature TV News.
Keep watching from The Correspondent. The big story comes next after the break. Stay with us. You're still watching Stories Behind the Headlines from our correspondents who go beyond and above to bring you impactful stories from wherever across the globe. And for this edition, one of the best in the profession, who happens to be our very own Charles Pius, was in South Africa to unravel the mystery behind this tension that exists between Nigerians and South Africans. So with me in the studio is Charles Pius, and it's always a pleasure having you on this program. Welcome, Charles.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel.
All right, so this story, I understand a lot went into it. How did you find yourself in South Africa? How did this happen? Let's start from your journey to South Africa.
Okay, so it's a part of one leg of the program by MTN, a sponsored media innovation program. Every year for the last 3 years, MTN has sponsored Nigerian journalists 20 every year, and this particular third cohort that ends next month, no, this month, because of the final ceremony for the graduation will happen this month. So it happens that they sponsor media professionals around the country, you know, to elevate them in terms of what they do. So that particular travel was a leg of that sponsorship. Okay. So that was how I found myself in South Africa, just in case you're asking that.
Okay. All right. So, well, I would like to know, you know, from preparing to travel, getting to the airport, taking off from Nigeria, reaching South Africa, how was the experience like?
It was a huge experience, great experience. I mean, that's the first time I'm actually traveling to South Africa. Yes, okay. I've been outside before, but it's different because, again, South Africa is the most developed country on the African continent. Okay. It's the only country, when you say in another 10 years, if there's any African country that's going to be developed, it's going to be South Africa because of what they have done. When you talk about GDP, when you talk about currency, when you talk about economy, they are far better than every country on the African continent. The weather is also fantastic. The food is also great. There are women, everything. Really cool. Okay. But again, because of the fact that they're that good and they're big in terms of economy, that's why people are going there. Mm-hmm. You have a situation where Nigeria, South Africa always have this issue. You know, it's not outspoken, but in little things you see it, you know, in broad conversations, whether on social media, even in mini conversations with people. And it's all because there's this fight about who is actually the giant of Africa.
There have been these stories of Nigerians, they allege that Nigerians collect their women, their jobs, and all of those things. Did you, I don't know, but from your investigation, did you find out that these statements are true, or what was?
Incidentally, that is true. I mean, true to the extent of Nigerians are lavish people. They are loud people. Exactly. So when they come into your space, they tend to, if you're not careful, you'll be swallowed by their presence. So most of them who are there, it's not like Nigerians who are there are people, the Nigerians who are not doing, you know, bad. But the ones that are doing really good are really doing good. And so what do you make of a young Nigerian guy who, you know, has everything going for himself, has money? The next thing is practically going after you know, trying to make himself look good. The South African, I think the narrative with what I have seen should be shifted, because I asked young South Africans there, what's this thing about Nigerians taking your women? Because why are you not accusing South African women of going for Nigerian guys? Exactly. Why is it exactly that you guys are going for Nigerian guys?
It happens to be that most African countries have this particular problem with Nigerians. I know Ghana. Now, earlier in the news we heard something about Libya authorities arresting Nigerians over the CAF judgment that awarded Nigeria 3 points and charged them, I think, $50,000 as fine due to what happened sometimes a week or so. All right, so why is it that it's always Nigerians? Okay, we've explained that, but I would want to understand, just like the United States of America and the European Union, where they came together, they've built an empire, prospering in terms of economy and all of that. Why can't we have that as maybe an African Union that pushes the positive narrative? Why fight ourselves? Why this bad blood between most African countries and Nigeria? Because whatsoever happens, it all comes back to Nigeria this, Nigeria that. But well, for us to have a better understanding of this before maybe we'll come back to Charles, let's travel to South Africa through Charles's lenses.
South Africa, the gold land, the motherland, the country that everyone wants to be at. Fantastic place. The landscape, it's unbelievable. That's why most Africans love to visit South Africa, including Nigerians. But did you know that young South Africans have this particular perception about Nigerians living in South Africa? Want to know what the perceptions are? Let's find out.
When we listen to this podcast about girls who share their experiences with Nigerian men, it's very scary. And I have been very wary of Nigerian men. I'm scared of Nigerian men. I don't know why. Because you would hear stories such as like, no, they come here, they sleep with you to get your luck, they feed on you like you never be anything in life. They have snakes apparently. So, and I'm someone who's scared of snakes, so I can't risk that. So I think my perspective on Nigerian guys is mostly based on what people had to say. I've never had a one-on-one encounter with a Nigerian person, either a girl or a boy.
So I would say that people that you see on the street and the people that you come to live together with and learn from are two different people. Like there is to life, the good and bad. And we just happen to have the bad apples from Nigeria tainting the good image that the people of Nigeria have established for themselves.
There are people that South Africans blame for everything that's going wrong. There's unemployment, they will say Nigerians are taking jobs. There's drugs, they will say Nigerians are selling drugs. There's crime, they will blame it on Nigerians. When something is done by a Nigerian, it's reported widely, because even a South African can be caught abroad selling drugs. Our media won't report it like that.
I think they are the most talkative people. They talk a lot, to be honest. You will try to get one idea across your mind, then the next thing they talk about something else. So I feel like they are so talkative and they are so smart. One thing about our Nigerian brothers is that they are very smart and and also business-minded people as well.
The crime that is committed by by Nigerian people in our country, they're always through South African people, because these people, they know the streets of our country. So it's unfortunate that I have to go against everyone and say we have to deal with our people first, because every crime through that is done by Nigeria, by people from African countries and like outside our continent as well, they are true South African people.
What an interesting perspective from the young South Africans giving their opinions about Nigerians living in their country. But a section of the professionals have something a little different. They put some context to it.
And there are things that fuel, what I call unfair xenophobia and hatred, where people think that the whole crime in South Africa is only committed by Zimbabweans. Drugs are only peddled by Nigerians, and cash heists are done by Mozambicans. There are South Africans who are also part of those criminal networks. But these are things that contribute to, the straining of relationships. These are things that continue to say there'll always be this tense relationship between the two countries. But I think what the two governments need to really look at and urgently address is from the societal point of view, not the diplomatic one, but the intercultural and intersocietal of how the two nations can relate with one another. They are two of Africa's biggest superpowers, but let's not lie to each other. There are underlying issues, and those need to be spoken about, and that can only be led from a civil society level.
I find them very admirable, hardworking,
very dedicated, disciplined people, which are sentiments that I also echo, perceptions I also echo. But I think when it comes to the ground and local communities, there's perceptions about them being involved in selling drugs and all those social ills that are associated with society. So I think it depends on where you find a particular Nigerian, in which community in South Africa you find them and what you find them doing for a living. One of the things that fuels negative perceptions around them is that social media tends to focus on one angle of Nigerians. Yes, we know in all contexts, there's good people, there's bad people that are involved in different things. But you'd find that because social media is all about promoting things that create conversations and are popular, you find that most of the time the negative side of Nigerians are the ones, the viewpoints that are present in the media that get people talking and that people talk.
You know, most South Africans, you know, don't have any negative feelings against Nigerians. Obviously, there is a tug of war between these superpowers because Nigeria and South Africa are two big countries in Africa, and obviously because of that, you tend to see that there's a lot of friction that often happens, sometimes political, geopolitical positioning, but it doesn't mean that the ordinary South African has got any negative feelings. Yes, cases can be raised around maybe the issue of Chidima, where people were talking about so many other things online, but generally the ordinary person is of the understanding that we are all Africans, we deserve to live in the same continent.
Members of the MTN Media Innovation Program while in South Africa expressed concerns about the strained relationship between the two nations.
We're here at the South African Institute for International Affairs.
So the narration in Nigeria is that South Africans hate Nigerians, and the narration in South Africa is that Nigerians are mostly criminals fighting for their already scarce resources, but this is not entirely true.
The lectures we got today was not inspiring. It was depressing for me because Africa has a myriad of challenges and problems. Fighting each other shouldn't be one of those problems.
The xenophobic attacks on Nigerians. And from our conversation, I found out that it could be that there are some people benefiting from this, right? And it doesn't really speak well because it's sort of selfish.
But what I saw today is that South Africans are sort of giving up hope that nothing can be done.
Nigerian who has lived most of his life in South Africa, he tells me the hate doesn't really exist, it's just a perception.
And the xenophobic tensions in South Africa and between South Africa and Nigeria are really just boiling down to perceptions. It's strictly a perception issue, and perceptions are driven and drawn by narratives. And these narratives need to be corrected, they need to be fact-checked, and they also need to be very much, authenticated.
Even the South African statistics don't show that most crimes committed in South Africa are done by Nigerians.
The successes attained by the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, DPCI, during the first quarter of 2024-2025 financial year. During this period, the Directorate secured convictions on 506 accused. Of these convictions, 262 accused persons, inclusive of 12 juristic persons, were sentenced, while the balance of 244, which include 15 juristic persons, are to be sentenced on the dates after this quarter under review. One of the 262 sentenced natural persons, 173 are South Africans, while 77 are foreign nationals. The top sentenced foreign nationals are 27 Zimbabweans, Lesotho with 14 convicts, Mozambique with 10 convicts. The rest are divided among the other countries. Most of these convictions and sentences were secured in the Northwest Province with 51.
During a discussion with Stephen Grust of the South African Institute of International Affairs, he tried to trace the history of the two countries' diplomatic role as far back as 1995.
So I know I'm not doing this in a historical order, but you think back to 1995 when Sani Abacha was the president of Nigeria, and there was the big case of the Ogoni activists, including Ken Saro-Wiwa. Mandela believed that he had been given assurances that they would not be executed. He went to the Commonwealth Summit in Auckland in New Zealand, and while he was there, Abacha put Saro-Wiwa and 8 others to death. And Mandela was devastated, very angry, and moved in 1995 for Nigeria's suspension from the Commonwealth. That didn't go down well. And in fact, he had to backtrack, and South Africa learned a lesson that they should not be too far out of step with what Africa is doing, and it's not good to embarrass another African country in public. And I think that's had an effect. Maybe good because it's increased intra-African solidarity and Pan-Africanism, but I think it's also made South Africa very wary of criticizing other countries.
He also mentioned that it has taken South Africa a long time to even acknowledge the problem.
It's taken a long time for the South African government to recognize and accept that xenophobia is a problem. I mean, I work on the African peer review mechanism, and it was the 15th anniversary of the establishment of the mechanism, and President Thabo Mbeki was at the event, and I asked a very pertinent question. I said, when the peer review mechanism examined South Africa in 2007, it identified latent xenophobia and said this is a phenomenon that must be nipped in the bud and must be taken seriously. Mr. President, do you wish that if you went back all those years, you would have taken it a little bit more seriously? And he said, I'm not going to answer your question. And then he proceeded to answer my question for an hour. But he said, you know, a lot of it is just criminals taking advantage of this, and it's not really a problem. And the Zambian ambassador stood up and said, Mr. President, with respect, and you know when somebody says, with respect, what's coming next? He said, you know, my nationals are really suffering here. There have been people killed. There have been businesses destroyed. There have been homes destroyed. So I think it's taken a long time for the government to actually acknowledge it's a problem.
Former President Thabo Mbeki of South Africa thinks the conversation on Pan-Africanism has completely lost steam.
And so when you raise this matter about the movement of Africa,
it's been an interesting segment on From the Correspondent here on Signature TV, having to get this, for me, new knowledge. I never for one knew that there was this breach of trust between former Nigerian leader with Nelson Mandela concerning the death of Ken Saro-Wiwa. And for me, it's quite inciting, and I believe this is the major reason why we have this bad blood. But we'll hear more from Charles, who was there, who spoke to the people, and some of the things he noticed while staying in South Africa. So the report is so elaborate for me, and I feel like deviating a bit from from the story, because looking at it has already said everything. But from what the historian just said, were you able to see any signs that connote that the government of South Africa is backing this violence that comes from time to time?
I mean, from the face value, apparently you would look and state clearly, they would always say they are brothers, they are sisters, we are together, but deep down it's quite different. Frankly speaking, even with the latest information regarding Chidinma, you will find out that there's still a deep-rooted hatred. Even when she has finally left South Africa, the Home Office is saying that her mother committed fraud, identity fraud, and because of that, they are actually asking that the organizers of the Miss Universe, send her packing. So you could see that deep-rooted hate, because again, the mother committed fraud. What's Achidima's problem if the mother did? Why don't you go after the mother who committed the so-called fraud? But then the investigation allegedly is still South Africans that conducted it. There was no third party that actually conducted that investigation to say that she actually did commit identity fraud, because it was when she was at the finals of the Miss Universe in South Africa that this news started coming up, because she's a Nigerian. And so you are talking about a government, an arm of government in South Africa, doing these type of things to someone who's a Nigerian. So from face value, they will tell you, oh, we are together, we're good to go, we're brothers, but deep down, there's still this deep-rooted hatred. And for that particular story, South Africa, they are actually big on human rights because of where they're coming from, the apartheid regime and all of those things. So at the time when Ken Saro-Wiwa was in prison by Abacha regime, Mandela got wind of it and asked, Abacha to please release these guys. These guys are just doing their job. Please release them. And he traveled and came back only to hear that Abacha had killed him and 8 others. And so that was really a bad thing for him as a leader who thought he had a friend in Sani Abacha. That mistrust between the two countries, that is actually where it started from. Nobody could draw anything on the history, because of course Nigeria has helped South Africa in the apartheid regime, so nobody can draw anything except that particular incident that happened between Nelson Mandela and Abacha. And since then there has been this back and forth, this deep-seated disengagement, because Nelson Mandela, of course, he's well respected in South Africa, and sometimes the things that he says, is taken like something cast in stone in South Africa. People still respect him even while he's there. So while he was there and he made mention of it to his South African public, South Africans started looking at Nigeria in a totally different light, and that thing has always continued. And so that wasn't managed properly by the two governments, and that's the reason why this has also dovetailed further.
Okay. I think I understand better now, and for some of us who are hearing this for the first time, it's becoming clearer why these issues come up from time to time. But let's deviate a bit from the story per se. You went on a trip.
Yeah.
More like a holiday or something.
Well, it's learning.
I know you tried new food, new weather. Did you make friends? What was the food like compared to our egusi and the other okra soup?
Yeah, I mean, it's incomparable, really. I mean, they are not really big on soup. They're not really big on African salad and African food. They are more of vegetables, fruits, and meats. Okay. In fact, one of the persons I asked there in South Africa, why do we have more ladies with a huge backside? And she said to me that they eat a lot of meat. Oh. And so the meat, when it's eaten, goes down there. I don't know how true that is. So they're not really big on soups like us here, where we have different soups we could talk about across board, but they are quite good on fruits, vegetables, and meat.
Okay. There's this would I say narrative that there is a place in South Africa where blacks can't visit, a town only white, where I don't know, but since you were there, did you hear something about, or maybe why is it so that we brothers living in the same place, I can enter a specific room in the same house we stay together?
I mean, South Africa is a mixed race country. You can't even say it's a black country, because you could naturally see, if you look at the history, you could see white people who came to settle in. At some point, there are even more whites than blacks at some point, in South Africa history, because of the resources that they had, the golds, and other resources that attracted people into South Africa from the Portuguese, the Chinese, and the Europeans. Like you mentioned, yes, there's actually a place in South Africa where blacks don't actually go to. They don't want blacks. They mention it. If they see blacks there, you most likely not come out.
Oh, is it that deep? But
well, you see, the apartheid regime, yes, you could say is gone for good, but there's still some sense of, you know, that history that has remained, you know, just like what we had as the Nigerian Civil War. Exactly. You could say there's no war anymore, but you could also feel a deep-seated, you know, mistrust between the two, between like, the people from the southeast and the other people from other regions. That's how it is there. Okay. The whites still, you know, are still reeling from the fact that they're no longer in control of most of the things, but they are actually still in control. But most of the time they're not in charge totally about what happens, you know, in different parts of South Africa.
Okay, all right. So, by way of rounding up, what necessary steps do you think we can take to change this narrative between Nigeria and South Africa?
Really, the two governments have to sit down and talk about this. Not just sitting down and talk about this across the table, because again, it's also one of those things that they do. And then, I mean, we've had African Union bring in African countries to come talk about issues, and at the end of the day, they say they write it, to implement it is a problem. But some of these programs that, like the MTN has embarked upon, which is the Media Innovation Program, that has allowed media executives from Nigeria to go to South Africa to learn a little bit about South Africa, you know, helps to diffuse some of these hateful narratives. I also understand that this particular program, the government of Nigeria, the two governments wants to adopt it as a bi-national government program, okay. Where South Africans also send, you know, their media executives to Nigeria to learn, and Nigeria also send media executives also to South Africa. That way, by the time you do that for 10, 20 years, I mean, you can imagine that the narrative hopefully will begin to change, or would have changed to the best. You know, because again, as it stands, that deep-seated hate is still there.
All right, it's been such a wonderful time, new dimension to this whole South African thing. For me, it was quite insightful, because getting to know that there was actually something between the two governments that didn't sit well with the other party. I understand clearly, at least if someone would ask me, okay, for South Africa, Nigeria, at least one could say a thing or two about it. And I believe you also had a wonderful time, as I did, maybe to learn a thing or two concerning this issue that has been prevalent for a long time now. It's so sad that we will have to end at this point. Join us next week, same time, for another interesting edition. I am Emmanuel Tewasi, and we've had Charles Pius, who have done justice on the perception of South Africans towards Nigerians living in South Africa and beyond. And from me to you, it's bye for now.